you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another summer edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, how you doing, my friend?
I'm excellent. How you doing, Jimmy?
Good, good. I see you're back up in Tremblant, my friend, huh?
Yeah, I'm here for most of the month of August.
Nice. How's the weather up there?
It was good till today.
Yeah.
I've been here since I've been here since Sunday, and it's been great until today. But who's complaining? The sun's coming out right now. It's pretty nice.
What? You got some thunderstorms or what?
We had some rain today. I wouldn't say thunderstorms. We had some rain today, though.
Okay. All right. And a little power outage, as you were telling me.
We had a power outage. Yes, we did.
Well, it's because you're attached to a Murphy now, Pierre. Murphy's Law. It just finds it. You got to be careful. But anyhow, Pierre, lots going on, amazingly, in the hockey world in the past week since we last joined each other here. And, of course, let's go to today, and we'll kind of work backwards, Pierre. And a big signing by the Montreal Canadiens as they continue to lock up the young core of their blue line, signing Kaiden Guhle to a 6-year, $33 million contract extension. Pierre, your initial thoughts on this extension, and does it make sense at this time for the Canadiens?
Well, first of all, it gets him to 29 years of age. Caiden's a very good player. I think everybody knows that. He was an excellent draft pick. He's been cultivated properly. He's had a battle through some early injuries in his career, but I think he's done that well. He can play the left side or the right side, so he's not overmatched on either side, I don't believe. I think eventually he'll be able to play in the second power play. I don't think he'll be a better power play player than Lane Hudson. But what I like about this is it buys up 3 years of unrestricted free agency. It takes him to 29 years of age. And for a guy that started in the league really young, I think that's great. I really do. I think it's a positive thing for the Canes. They've identified the fact to get Slavkovsky signed. They got Suzuki signed. Caulfield is signed. Guhle is signed. They're heading the right direction. They really are. They've got a lot of really good components.
Yeah, I was actually texting with Jeff Gordon earlier today, Pierre, and he seemed pretty happy. And talked to some other Canadiens people as well. They like the direction this is going. The one thing you mentioned it there, the injuries. Does it worry you a bit when you lock up a guy that long term that he's had so many injuries already and missed so much time?
I think if he was 28 and I was doing this deal with all these injuries, I'd be concerned, but he's not. And so, he's a player that's 23. I don't see this. It should not. You can't legislate against injury, obviously.
Right.
But I can't think that this will be a big problem as most of this part of this contract. And if it is, then it's bad luck. The one thing I would say, these contracts are insured too. So It's not like the team is going to be penalized for it. They will be on the cap a little bit at some point, but I don't see that being an issue. I'd rather focus on the positive. And what the positive is, if you're a Canadiens fan, you're getting key components signed to long-term deals. And the guys who they want to still gauge, whether that be Jaden Struble, whether that be Jordan Harris, whether that be Arber Xhekaj, whether it be Barron, they're giving those guys 2-year deals or letting them play out their entry-level deals. It's not like they're just throwing out there, but they've identified the importance of getting Slavkovsky done, Guhle done, Caulfield done, Suzuki done. They've identified their key components.
Yeah, you mentioned Xhekaj signed a 2-year, $2.6 million contract yesterday, and he's got an AAV of 1.3. And then they also lock up Barron. So I'm with you. They're doing what you got to do. If you want to build a good foundation with a team, Pierre, we've discussed it many times here, you build from the goalie out. And they have a great goalie coming at Boston College, as we've been very high on him. He'll be there soon. And they've got, I think I like the goaltending situation as it is now. I don't mean to sound insulting. I'm not trying to knock them at all, but it's a good stopgap situation that they're in as they progress into the future.
You're not insulting anybody. The truth is that neither guy's had a lot of success at key times over an NHL season. They've had limited runs, both Primo and Montembeault. They both had good runs, but none of them had elite success. So to say what you said is not wrong. I don't have a problem with that. Both those players need to continue to prove people wrong, and I think they probably will. Neither one of them will be better than Jacob Fowler.
Yeah.
Unless Jacob Fowler falls right off the turnip truck and has an unbelievably bad injury, Jacob Fowler is going to be a star player in the NHL. He's going to be a star player in the NHL for a long time.
I'm with you on that, Pierre. So the Canadiens quite busy there. You mentioned up front too, and that's the other thing I like what you said there. They've locked up Sofkowski. They got Caulfield. They got Suzuki. They've also now got some talent coming in eventually. Not this year, we don't think, but in the near future, Demidov will be in there too. If you're looking down the pipeline in about 3 to 4 years, this could be a pretty scary team in terms of depth at each position, Pierre.
It could be. Here's the issue.
A lot of things going to happen. I know, but
but it's a fair point. Here's what you need to also focus in on. Will Ottawa continue to take step forwards? Because they haven't over 8 years. Do they have the ability to? The answer is yes. What will happen to Toronto within the next 2 to 3 years? Because if they don't have success, they're going to have to retool. Yep. Detroit should be going upwards. Now, if they don't this year, that's probably going to be a problem for them. Buffalo should be going up this year. But if they don't,
when I see it,
that could be right, but that could be a problem. Boston's probably going to stay the same, maybe go up a little bit.
Right.
But if they do, then, again, it's the neighborhood. The Atlantic is tough.
Yeah.
Really tough. The Metro is not. The Central's not.
Mm-hmm.
The Pacific's getting better. So, you look at it and it's a little different. They're in a tough neighborhood. I keep saying this all the time, and people don't want to understand that. But their teams, they all started their rebuild almost at the same time.
Right.
Toronto and Boston didn't. They were already established.
Yep.
But all the other guys started about the same time. There's been no playoffs for Detroit for a long time. There've been no playoffs for Ottawa for a long time. There've been no playoffs for Buffalo for a very long time. So who the teams in that division? Florida's been pretty good for a while now. Tampa's been pretty good for a while now. Toronto and Boston been pretty good for a while. So all those other teams, they all kind of started at the same time, rebuilding.
You brought up the Panthers here, and we'll get to Tampa in a second. But Pierre, the Panthers, you look at the losses they've suffered in the offseason. Now, they've done a good job finding some good budget players to fill the holes that were left behind by some of these players that left. Do you see them taking a step back? Or do you see them being a legit Stanley Cup contender again?
It depends on how big the Stanley Cup hangover is.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, they went to the final a year ago. They lost.
Yep.
They go to the final this year. They win. It's not an easy final. It goes 7 games.
Yeah.
They were tested in a lot of their series, and now they lose players. It's not that they don't have a good team, but I can tell you, their people understand there's only so many times you can go to the well. Ask Colorado.
Yeah.
Ask Tampa. It's hard to replicate it. I was fortunate to be part of a team that won back-to-back. And then in the third year, they won the President's Trophy, and they flamed out in the second round of the playoffs. And then it was a beast for them to get back. And they never got back to the final again until 2008. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's really hard. It's harder than people think. And this NHL is far more difficult than what it was back in the 70s and the 80s. There's just way too many good players.
Well, that's why now the team I'll bring up now, and to me, has just been so amazing. I mean, I've told you before, I don't know if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, where I look at them, they're like the New England Patriots of the NHL, and that's the Tampa Bay Lightning, the way they have just been able, with the salary cap, with the fatigue that they've probably built up over all those cup final appearances, still be competitive. And yeah, they had a little setback this year, and they didn't get as far as they wanted, and we kind of thought that would eventually happen. It's human nature. But Pierre, they go out and they add Jake Gensel. I mean, it's like all of a sudden, I kind of see them maybe going ahead of Florida again this year.
And don't forget Ryan McDonough, too.
And Ryan McDonough, that's right.
Now, I will say this. I'm worried about not having Stamkos there.
Yes, that is going to be interesting.
Athletically, can other guys pick it up? Can Kucherov do it? Can Braden Point do it? Yes, they can.
Yep.
But Steven is a dynamic leader.
Yeah.
Steven is a winner.
He was a statement.
I've known him a long time, Jimmy, on the ice and away from the ice. And I'm telling you, the guy's a winner. And until you're around him a lot, you don't understand the value that he has in that type of a situation. And so it's going to be interesting. Who's going to take up that leadership? Can McDonough do it? I think he can. You know, can Hedman do it? He's obviously a very respected player who just signed a huge extension. But do I expect Gensel to do that? No, I don't.
No.
Can Braden Point do it? He might be able to, but not like Steven did.
Not Kucherov, I don't think.
Kucherov's not the same guy. Cirelli, listen to me. Cirelli's a great player, Jimmy. He's a great player for the right role. But again, I don't know if Anthony is the leadership dynamic guy that Steven has been. So that's my concern for them. But they have one thing that a lot of teams don't have.
What's that? A goalie?
Andre Vasilevsky, who, by the way, is going to want to prove a lot of people wrong.
Oh, he is, for sure.
And so I think Tampa, Julian Breezeball has done a nice job there. Al Murray's done a nice job there. You know, the support staff there, Matthew Darsh, all those guys have done a really good job down there. They have. Obviously, Cooper and his staff have done a really nice job there as coaches. But the truth is, they've had a lot to work with as a staff. It's not like they've had a bare bones roster. No. This will probably be one of the weakest rosters they've had to work with. And it's only because, you know, at some point the roster has to start rebuilding, re-energizing. It just has to.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up, I'm glad you brought up McDonough there in terms of the leadership. I wondered too, Pierre, you know, when they went out, because remember, they went out and got him in a trade before free agency happened and all that. You wonder, it was part of that sensing that they might not be able to lock up Stamkos and they were going to need that leadership component again. And also a guy that is familiar with leading in that dressing room. I wonder if that was just sort of like a semi-safety valve, so to speak.
Well, first of all, I think that's a fair point that you're raising, the leadership component, not being able to be 100% convinced that you were going to be able to keep Stamkos. But here's the other thing. I thought for a while they were toying with the idea of trading Sergachev.
Mm-hmm.
I think they saw that some of their young defensemen might be able to come in and do a relatively good job at a far reduced cost than what Sergachev was. And I think at some point, you know, whether it was injuries, obviously at the end I felt terrible for Sergachev with his injuries. But I think they just felt they could find more reliable defensive players than what Sergachev could bring them. And that's why I think they looked at McDonough and said, we can get him, you know, a way reduced cost. We already know him. He's won 2 Stanley Cups with our group.
Mm-hmm.
We will take him back here. We like him. We like what he brings to us.
And by the way, and obviously if you watch the eye test and you've heard Pierre and I talk about this player a lot, you know, everybody focuses on what they traded when they traded Sergachev and not enough on maybe what they got back. I know they're not necessarily superstars yet, but JJ Moser and Connor Geekie are solid players, Pierre, and Moser especially. We've been big fans. We've been high on him since last summer, you know, so it shouldn't go unnoticed what they were able to bring back in that trade.
The problem is, and this is not a knock on fans, unless you're a true fan of Arizona / Utah, or you have somebody that's playing on that team that you know, you're not watching them.
You're not staying up for that.
They haven't been relevant for a long, long time. This was probably the most relevant they've been in a very long time. And they were still decades away from making the playoffs as a, you know, a unit. I'm using that as a hyperactive term, but I think about it. JJ Moser's a really good player.
I like him a lot.
He's a really, really good player. And Geekie's just going to keep getting better for what they are. And what he brings some size.
Yep.
And they like bigger players.
Bruisers.
Especially with their depth players.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about when they were winning, Maroon was a depth player there. Barclay Goodrow was a depth player there. Blake Coleman was a depth player there. You look at, did they have some undersized guys? Cirelli's not a huge guy.
Yeah.
So I get it. Yanni Gord wasn't a huge guy, or isn't a huge guy, but he wasn't big when he played. But he played big.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
Pierre-Edouard Bellemare was a big man. So, I mean, I think they just like bigger players in their depth positions.
Yep. I'm with you on that. And you know, it's a great point by you. They always love their bottom 6 to grind the opponent down and wear them down. And that's been a trademark of theirs. Pierre, let's switch over to the Western Conference in a big signing. We both like this contract. Great job by Billy Guerin, the GM of the Minnesota Wild. He gets Brock Faber signed 8 years, $68 million. He was a Calder Trophy finalist. I think this deal's perfect for where both sides landed. I think both sides should be happy with the contract.
So I'm not a big proponent of giving guys that are shot blockers and defensive guys big money contracts, but Faber's more than just that. That's the part of his game that you see now.
Mm-hmm.
There's an offensive component to his game that you're going to see a lot more of.
Yep.
As he gets more and more comfortable. The minutes were too big for him. There were a lot of nights this year. And I told you after the coaching change happened, I remember telling you, Jimmy, this guy's going to play close to 30 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yep.
Under John Hines. And he did, which is fine. I get it. That's fine. They threw him in there. They were a non-playoff team. He had a chance to really evolve. Once his minutes come down to maybe 24 to 25, so about 4 to 5 minutes a game, the offensive numbers are going to go up, Jimmy. But I'm not a fan of giving defensive shutdown guys big dollar deals, but I am a fan of giving guys that are really competent two-way players, and that's what Brock Faber is going to be. He's going to give you offense. He's also going to give you really stout defense.
Yep.
That's a great deal for Minnesota, and it's a great deal for the kid.
And Pierre, go back to the team that we spoke about ad nauseum last week when we had Aaron Portzline on from The Athletic, and that's the Columbus Blue Jackets. And a guy we mentioned that they were looking to lock up, they did, and that's Marchenko. And pretty solid deal, I think. What do you think?
No, solid deal. He's a good offensive player. I think eventually Donnie Waddell is going to look to retool there. The Patrik Laine situation is going to play itself out eventually.
I want to get into that, yep.
And, we all just, from the eye test anyways, I know Jimmy and I both want Patrik just to be well enough to be able to get back to an NHL ice surface if that's what he chooses to do. But his mental and physical health is more important than anything he can do as a hockey player right now. So that's all we're really kind of hoping for. But eventually that's going to play itself out one way or the other.
And just on the numbers there with Marchenko, an $11.55 million deal for 3 years with the AAV being 3.85. But back to Laine. So I had some people when I tweeted out that we were going to be on today again. Had some people say any Laine tidbits. Pierre, the team we started off talking about, the Montreal Canadiens, has constantly been linked to them. Given what they're doing with all we just spoke about with Montreal Canadiens and the direction they're heading in, is it a move you'd make right now to bring him into the fold, or do you want to just kind of keep following the path you're on? Because, and look, as you said, we want him to be better as a human being, but he is a wild card because of everything, and he's got unbelievable skill. But even when he's healthy, he can be a wild card. And, Waddell wants a hockey deal. I don't know if he's going to get it, but he's going to push hard for it. He's a good GM. He'll do what he has to do to get that hockey deal. If you're the Canadiens, are you interested in him?
So here's what I want you to play for our viewers. I want you to pull up his career stats. And I'm just going to tell you right now, he's almost a point-a-game player. If you just give me the numbers and I'll, again, just going off the top of my head, I want to make sure we get it right.
Yes, he is.
So just give us the numbers because I'll show you about why it's a hockey deal.
Well, he's got, you're looking at his last good season. Obviously, he didn't play much last year. 22-23. He had 22 goals, 30 assists, 52 points.
Well, let's go at the bottom of the.
Oh, yeah. 388. He's got 204 goals, 184 assists, and 388 points in 480 games.
He's almost a point-a-game player.
Yep.
On a lot of bad teams.
Mm-hmm. So you put him with some good defensive-minded players because he is a minus 58 a career, but look at the teams he's been on.
So all I'll say is that the potential to do a hockey deal because of the numbers is there.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, when you don't know what you're getting, you don't know because of what he's gone through this year. And until you're aware of that, it's a very risky proposition.
Do you think, let's assume he's getting traded, okay? Do you think it happens before the season? Or, as you just said, you don't know what you're getting yet. Our GM's saying to Donnie right now, Donnie Waddell, that is, look, Donnie, we're interested. We're definitely interested. We want to talk with you about this, but we kind of just want to get a taste, maybe 10 to 15 games in, see where he's at. And if you're Waddell, what do you do if they are saying that?
What I would like to do is I would like to have the ability to speak to the player with a healthcare professional.
Okay.
My own.
Mm-hmm.
And I know athletically what he can do. I need to know where the rest of the package is. And that's why I'd want to do it properly. One, to make sure that we're not putting too much of a burden on the player at this point of his recovery, and that the total recovery is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a very, very risky proposition if you're getting somebody that still is not recovered.
Yeah.
Both health-wise, human-wise, and athletically. It's a really tough component to figure out.
And he's an $8.7 million cap hit for the next 2 seasons. So yeah, it's a risk. I look at the Canadiens though, and I look at the Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets could use some defensemen, and they've got a surplus of it. So that's why I think if they are interested in all the things that need to happen, I do see a potential match there if you're the Canadiens. Another team, Pierre, that I heard a lot this week, I read, and then I was speaking to a couple scouts that seemed to be interested, is a team we already brought up a bit, and that's Utah. And you look at all the prospects they have, the young players they have, could there be a hockey deal there to be made?
There could be. They're anxious to do deals.
Yeah.
That's
That's Don Waddell calling me right now.
you, right? Don't worry about it. That's the way it goes. It's live TV, as they say. No, I could Utah be interested? Yeah, I could see 3 or 4 teams that would be really interested in the player, as long as the player and the person are both well.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure of that, and until he's been given the green light by, the NHL, you don't know. You got to wait and see what the NHL does in terms of clearing it.
Yeah, going to be interesting. Pierre, when I was talking to you before we came on the air, and we're just talking about some of these contracts that are being signed right now, and long-term deals with young players. And I asked you, does the uncertainty of the CBA play any role right now? Is it making either side, player or team, hesitant? It doesn't seem like it right now, but should it? Is my question.
I don't know what the next CBA is going to be, and I don't think anybody else does either.
And that's why I wonder, should it?
So here's my concern. How well received will streaming be for TV?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's not well received on the viewership side, I think the league's going to have a big regional broadcast problem.
Yep.
You'd have to talk to the national carriers, whether it's ESPN or TNT. Are they actually happy with the dollar value that they've spent to get the national rights and split them?
Mm-hmm.
Has it been a financial bonanza for them, or has it been a liability for them? Much like in Canada,
right,
with Rogers Sportsnet, it's been a very painful financial commitment to that organization.
Yes.
To own the NHL rights for 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, does a cap go up? How much more can they continue to charge families to go to games? I don't know. And anybody that tells you that ticket prices don't equate to what salaries are, they haven't looked at a hockey balance sheet. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You saw it firsthand.
So but TV money matters too.
Oh yeah.
And it's not getting cheaper to run a team in this league. It's not getting cheaper.
No.
Everything's gone up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's your charter costs, whether it's your equipment costs, whether it's your meal costs, because everybody now has their own chefs. They all have their own kitchens. They're all feeding these guys, breakfast and lunch,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of times dinner too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially when they're on a plane, the catering cost. So everything's got, just like your grocery bills, Jimmy.
Oh gosh.
I'm just saying. So
thank God for Market Basket. Not many people know about that.
You know what I'm talking about. So everything's gotten more. So to run a team is not getting cheaper.
Yeah.
It's not getting cheaper at all. And so again, we've seen big issues with the regional carriers in TV. Big issues.
Speaking of TV too, disappointing news last week, and I just want to give a shout out to our good friend Jeff Marek, who is no longer at Sportsnet. He did a wonderful job over his 13 years there. I've had the pleasure. You've had the pleasure of being on the air with him, Pierre. I know you've worked draft coverage with him. He's a class act, professional, and most of all, just a great person. He's always checking on me. You know, he's always checking in with people. He's not just a colleague. He'll check in. Jimmy, how you doing mentally? How's things going with you in your life? It's not just, hey, what's going on with the eye test or what's going on with your writing. Always checking in on you, the human. So shout out to Jeff. I know he'll land on his feet soon.
Yeah, I hope so. He's really good at what he does. He's really good at what he does, and he's an honorable person. I don't know what went into their decision-making at Roger. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Sometimes funny things happen in the TV world.
Yeah.
You just can't, you can't explain them. You don't know why certain things happen, but they do. So you just got to move on.
It's part of the business.
Don't throw sticks and stones. Just understand it's part of the business and you move along.
Exactly. But it's just one more thing about the CBA too. That does give me optimism. I'm not saying this just because he's a Boston guy, but Marty Walsh, I think, is going to be a good guy for the NHLPA because by all accounts, from what I've heard behind the scenes and what I've seen publicly, he is forming a very amicable relationship foundation right now with the NHL, with Bill Daly, with Gary Bettman and anyone else there. And it's something I didn't see in the year or 2 years before the last CBAs. It seems like, and I'm just saying, this is just from what I hear and what I see. I'm not in these conversations, but it seems like there is a friendly line of communication, at least at this point.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. But here's what I do know. He's been well received by the players.
Yes.
The people that are close to him have been really impressed. The agents that I speak to, and I talk to a good number of them, they've been extremely impressed, which is, I think, obviously great for that side. But I will tell you that the league are very difficult negotiators. And I'll say that in a negative way. I say that in
why they are where they are.
that in a positive way.
Yeah.
And whether it's Commissioner Bettman, whether it's Deputy Commissioner Daly, they're extremely good at what they do. And I know fans love to hate on them. They have a job to do. Their constituents are the owners. Are the 32 teams that are part of the league. And I can admit, Jimmy, I'm more convinced than ever that we're going to have at least 4 teams in the NHL, 4 new teams.
Me too.
And I think it's going to come before we get to the next collective bargaining agreement.
Ooh, wow!
Because expansion fees,
2 years. 2 years.
Yeah, expansion fees, Jimmy, right now are not part of hockey-related revenue. But if you're Marty Walsh, what do you think you're going to put on, knowing that there's going to be
going to go there?
What do you think you're going to ask for?
Yeah, that's going to be A on the list. ABC, that is A if I'm Marty Walsh.
If we're talking about Ottawa being close to $1 billion, now I'm using their math and their numbers, not mine. By what they said, that it was almost $1 billion in that transaction. Well, if Ottawa's worth that, what's an expansion team in Houston worth? What's an expansion team in Atlanta worth? What's an expansion team in Arizona worth? What's an expansion team, let's just say for the sake of argument, Portland, Oregon? What's that worth?
Kansas City, maybe.
Yeah, Kansas City, maybe.
You
So
know?
what are they worth? More than $1 billion.
I think that's going to be definitely at the top of the agenda there. And we shall see how that goes. Pierre, before we open it up to questions, I want to talk about one team that I cover, the Boston Bruins. And, nothing yet. I mean, it's dead silence on Jeremy Swayman right now. But I look at that team. And, the more I've been harsh on them since free agency. I credit them. I thought they were good signings. But you and I both agreed that on a Stanley Cup contender, Elias Lindholm is a 2C, right? We like the Zadorov signing. We've been saying that, but we would have preferred maybe Hanifin in a trade and an extension. But they were good signings. We agree with it. But I do look at that team, right? And I I like the versatility they still have with their forwards. I really like what they can do with a guy like Geeky, a guy like Coyle. They do have the ability to move guys around. I'm sure they'd love to have a real true number one center, but I do like the versatility. So I just wanted to get that out there because I took a lot of flack from Bruins fans saying you're being too negative. I said it wasn't negative. I still think they're going to compete and be in the playoffs. But the more I look at it, I'm like, I kind of like what Don Sweeney's doing, and I wonder, is it because he's looking ahead? You know, he says there are things that are going to come up that I'm going to need to address down the line in free agency, maybe the following year in 2025. So I just want to get that off my chest for you Bruins fans that have been coming at me pretty hard on social media.
Well, we've been pretty positive about Donnie Sweeney.
I thought so too, Pierre, but I've been getting, geez, you're really negative about the Bruins. What do you, go back to Montreal, they tell me all the time.
Well, in a perfect world, Elias Lindholm is an elite number 2, and I think he's more of a 1B than a 1A. Doesn't mean he can't be a 1. I mean, I'll ask a Bruins fan this. Who do you think is better, David Krejci or Elias Lindholm?
Yep.
David Krejci was an elite number 2 center.
He was.
Stanley Cup winning team.
Yep.
Okay.
Was.
The
So
number 1 center was Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah. Future Hall of Famer.
Who's a better player, Patrice Bergeron or Elias Lindholm?
Yes. And by the way, that's another vent here. The media here, and even Don Sweeney a couple of times, stop trying to compare him to Bergeron. It's not a fair label to put on him. It's too high expectations to put on this guy, because then all of a sudden he doesn't live up to that, and everybody starts pouring on him. Just, he is who he is. He is what he is. That's the way
He's a good player. He's a really good
player.
Nobody ever said he wasn't a good player. Yeah. We thought the Bruins would get him at the trade deadline.
That's right.
I didn't think he was going to Vancouver. We want him to go to Boston because we wanted the slotting to be better. And I'm sticking up for you, Jimmy, because I know you have no remorse or no anger towards the Bruins.
Yeah.
I know how much you care about how well they do. So, yeah, that's not accurate. For whomever was saying that up to you, not accurate. I can tell you, I care about you, but I care about doing things right. And if we weren't doing it right, I wouldn't be doing this show.
Yeah.
And you never had any.
Yeah, I'm fair.
And you're always just being fair.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, as much as I like Nikita Zadorov, I would rather have Noah Hanifin.
Yes.
I'm just telling you.
Yep. I think, Pierre, you out of all the descriptions or the scouting reports I've had, you have given the best report on him when you say he's going to be a great physical presence. He's going to be a good slot on the left side there in the top, the second pairing. But sometimes you got to reel him in. And sometimes that can be his down. Even though I know they got him for his physicality, sometimes his physicality can be his downfall.
Jimmy, I want you to pull him up right now, and I'm going to do this without notes. Okay. So I'm going to tell you right now, he was drafted. Go look at it right now.
I'm pulling him up right now. Don't you worry. Go ahead.
Drafted by Buffalo, correct?
Yep. 16th overall, 2013.
Okay. Moves to Colorado, correct?
Yes. After 2 seasons. Well, 1 real full season.
Right. Moves from Colorado to Chicago?
Correct. After 2 seasons.
Moves from Chicago to Calgary?
After 1 season.
Moves from Calgary to Vancouver?
After, we'll say, 2.5.
Moves from Vancouver to Boston?
After a quarter.
How many teams is that, Jimmy?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams, Pierre. And now 6.
The hardest thing to find with an NHL team, a physical, robust defenseman that can shut opponents down.
Mm-hmm.
If he was, and this, he knows I like him. He knows.
Oh, yeah.
As a person, I like him a ton.
I like him a lot too.
But I will tell you right now, if he was super elite at what he did, he wouldn't be on all those teams.
No.
He would not. He would be staying with one of those teams.
Yep. I'm with you on that, Pierre. I'm with you on that. But he will help them. We'll give him that. So
he will help them. He will, but don't start telling me that he's the reemergence of Bobby Orr. I'm like hearing this guy's super. Calm down.
That's what I'm saying. It's hilarious how people get carried away. But anyhow, that's the fun of it.
I just want people to understand. I do that exercise with Jimmy a lot when we're not. Because I want people to understand. Like, there's a reason why players become available.
Mm-hmm.
Especially guys that are hard to find, big, physical, mobile, robust guys. They're hard to find. They don't fall off trees.
Yep, I'm with you on that. All right, let's get to our sponsors, Pierre, and swing it over to our readers and viewers over in the comments section for some questions. Let's talk about Betway right now, guys. Let's pull that up right now. And, of course, Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go to betway.com or scan that QR code right below Pierre there on your screen if you're watching to join the action. You must be 18 plus and play responsibly. Pierre, before I go to our other sponsor, was there ever a time in your career that you thought there'd be a QR code below you every show?
Until I started working with you, I didn't know what a QR code was.
Right?
No.
You know what? They're doing it now on the on gas tanks. When you go to the gas station now, they got the QR code. They're like, take a picture here, and just let me pay. But it is technology. We keep going forward. All right, and of course, our other sponsor, TCS Customs and Logistics. Want to give a shout out to Michael Maisling. Unlock the full potential of your shopping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics from around the corner to around the world. Flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is Sick Podcast at shiptcs.com. Pierre, have you heard from your cousin Michael?
I haven't talked to anybody yet. I just got up here, but I would tell you this, is that TCS has been unbelievable with us.
Yep.
They've been great for the Sick Podcast folks. We're really grateful for their sponsorship, and same with Betway. And our sponsorship situation just continues to grow by the day, and we're really grateful for everybody that wants to come on board or is exploring coming on board. The product just continues to evolve and get better. The guests want to keep coming on. And just to be fair, and Jimmy knows this, we're trying not to bother too many people during the off season, but we've had some significant guests on over the last few weeks. We're just trying not to be burdensome, let's say.
Yes.
To some of our hockey friends that are traveling.
That are finally maybe getting to kick back.
A break, exactly.
At a cottage or a beach house somewhere. Actually, I see a couple, where I am. I'm in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Pierre. A lot of NHL people have places in Seabrook, New Hampshire, on Seabrook Beach. I don't know why, how it came about, but I know there's there was a Nashville scout, Tommy Nolan, lives right across the street from my good friend Jeff Pilibosian, and there's a lot of other scouts around. So I see them around. I see them in some of the adult watering holes around here a few times. So there's a lot of hockey around here. I like it. Anyways, let's talk some hockey with our great viewers over in the comments section with their questions, as we do every episode here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. And Red wants to know what Michael Hage's ceiling will be for the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, if that's Red Berenson from his office at Ann Arbor, Michigan, where Michael's going to be going to school. Red, great to talk with you. I think his ceiling's really good. I don't want to say Pacioretty-like. I don't think that's fair to him. I see some similarities. Athletically, I'm talking about, not positionally, athletically. But I do think that he can be a 25 to 35 goal scorer guy. I really do. Now, this is a huge year. People are going to overreact, Jimmy. If he goes to Michigan this year and doesn't put up huge numbers, people are going to say, how could he not do that? College hockey has never been better. It's never been harder. And just remember one other thing. This is the last year of the fifth-year player.
Yes.
And so all these young guys coming in, this is the last time you're going to see these 17 and 18-year-old kids exposed to 24 and 25-year-olds.
Yep.
That's over. But for this year, it's still a real part of the thing. And that's why I'm not sure a lot of young players are going to put up huge point totals in college hockey this year.
Pierre, I'm glad you brought up college hockey. We're not going to get into it now because it is pretty in depth, but I do want to touch on the scholarship ruling that went down this past week. We'll get into it, but just remind me, I want to get into that maybe a little next week because it is very important. And yes, obviously it directly affects college players, but a lot of these college players are pro prospects, as we just mentioned. So I think it would be an interesting topic to get into, and remind me to talk about that. And we want to tell everyone to follow our buddy Mike McMahon on Twitter there. He's doing a great job breaking that down. All right, next question.
We should have Mike on next week.
Maybe let's do it.
Just so we've kind of teased people, just so everybody understands. In college hockey, it was only 18 full scholarships per team. And a lot of these teams would have 25 to 30 players on their roster. And so a lot of those, the worst lie in hockey anyways is, yeah, my kid's going on a 4-year full scholarship. Baloney. Because every scholarship gets renewed year to year. It's not a 4-year commitment. It's a year-to-year commitment. It's one of the big fantasies in hockey. Now, the NCAA wants to go from 18 to 26, but you can't have more than 26 players on your roster.
Correct.
And that's going to be the big thing going forward. And so there are going to be some schools that are going to be able to opt into this and do it easily, and there are going to be some that will not be able to afford it. So the ones that can't afford it, there's a revenue proposal, a revenue sharing proposal to this, that the schools that get to 26, they'll be able to be part of that revenue sharing. The ones that don't, they're not going to be able to. So we're getting close to having a real have and have not situation in hockey. It's getting really close. The
middle class is disappearing a bit there. And if you go, just so everyone knows too, Mike's Twitter handle is at Mike McMahon. That's McMahonchn at Mike McMahon CHN. If you go to my Twitter handle at Murphy's Law 74, you can see I just retweeted his in-depth great story on, and he's also been talking a little more about that revenue sharing thing. I know that UMass, my alum, will be involved.
Yep.
But like Pierre said, not everybody's going to be able to take part in that. So interesting stuff. We'll get him on for next week.
Mike's outstanding at what he does. I'm a big fan. I study a lot of what Mike does. He does a lot of thorough research.
He's nonstop.
And he cares. He's passionate about what he does. So he's very, very good at what he does.
All right. Next question. Randy Workman. Jimmy, did you think Lindholm money was good? Yeah, I mean, it is. It's the market, right? It's the market. That's the way I look at it. Would I do it in a perfect world? It might have been a little less, but that's the way the market is.
Well, what happens with a player like Elias is once he gets out on the market, all it takes is one other team to get involved, and then he's sitting in a very luxurious position.
And as Pierre already mentioned, we knew everyone, and it was one of the worst kept secrets in hockey, is that they were targeting him for a long, long time. Don Sweeney even said it in his press conference in Vegas, Pierre, at the draft. He's like, yeah, we've been eyeing this guy for 2 years.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you right now.
They're going to go after him.
Jimmy, before I started coming back in the media, after I left NBC to go work in Ottawa, I spent a lot of time watching Calgary. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't watching because of Johnny Gaudreau, and I wasn't watching because of Matthew Tkachuk, as much as I would love to have either one of those players. Right. I was watching them for Noah Hanifin, and I was watching them for Rasmus Anderson, and I was watching them for Elias Lindholm. Those were the players I had interest in.
Right.
And I can tell you right now that the year that I saw Elias Lindholm playing with Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, that was the best line in the NHL.
Easy. Hands down.
They were the best line in the NHL. And he was a big part of that.
Yep.
He was a huge part of that. Matthew was tremendous, and Johnny was really good.
Yep.
But he was a big part of that. He was really, really good.
Yep. I hear you. All right, next question. NDG PJ. What's up, NDG? I wonder if that has anything to do with PJ Pub in NDG. Great place to watch sports. With RHP out till December, could Kapanen get a longer look before being sent back to Sweden? What about Newhook, Doc, and Kapanen? What do you think?
I would say no.
And by the way, RHP, for those who don't know, is Harvey Pinard.
Harvey Pinard.
4 months.
No, but the one person that's not getting enough talk about, and I don't know, Jimmy, you're probably more plugged into me than I am, is Joshua Ottawa.
Yeah, why not?
I don't think Kapanen gets a longer look. But what about Joshua Ottawa?
Yeah. There was a lot of, you're right, Pierre, because remember that when there was a lot of hype around him 2 years
I
ago.
don't see anything about him. And
Now
I'm
it's just
wondering why that is, especially because of Harvey Pinard's training injury.
Yep.
Great, by the way, NDG, PJ, that's a great point because it's not being brought up a lot. But
Yep.
Harvey Pinard got hurt training this summer.
Yeah.
And so that's
he had not brought that up, so I'm glad he did.
yeah, it is. It's a great
Yep.
point. It's a significant injury. But my question is, what about Joshua Ottawa?
Well, we will keep an eye on that as camp gets underway in about a month. All right, next question. Jason Logan, what's up, Jay? Hey, gents, good to see you guys again. Just a follow-up question about the Leafs. How far you think they need to go to be safe? I get winning is the best, but like the 2 or 3 rounds, maybe the conference final, is that good enough?
Nice. Conference final would be good enough.
I think so, yeah. I think you got to reach the conference final unless they
got to start winning. They got to start winning past the second round.
Yeah, they have to.
I mean, enough's enough.
Yep. I'm with you on that. And it's nothing right now in the Marner situation, but we'll see what happens with that. All right, next question. John Smith, isn't it bad business to trade Ullmark before signing Swayman? Jeremy's holding all the cards now.
Can you just tell John Smith what I said to you?
Yep.
Yep.
You did.
You want to tell him?
You asked me. That was one of the first questions you said. Why is he getting traded without Swayman being locked up? Why are you putting yourself in this position right now?
It's a very, very difficult position as a negotiator to be in.
Because he knows you need him even more.
The agent representing Swayman says, "Oh, really? So you don't think my guy's worth anything? Go start Brandon Bussey then." And I think the world of Bussey. I watched him play a lot at Western Michigan. He's a really good. Not to be a starter in the NHL, he's not.
And I don't think Corpusalo is going to weather the storm. If there's a holdout, it's not going to happen.
Nonsense.
I think that's a great question there, John. Good point by you. We don't know. You'd have to ask Don Sweeney. All right, next question. Marco, if the Habs don't play 11 forward, 7D, do you expect a trade early on?
I do. But I've been saying it to Tony Marinaro. I've been saying it here to my partner and good friend, Jimmy Murphy. I think Montreal will go 11-7 so that the break-in process with Lane Hudson's not nearly as draconian for him, not as hard as what it could be if they were just going 12-6. So I think 11-7 is probably how they'll go. And really, Arber Xhekaj can play, as a depth defenseman. He also could be moved up front if you had to play him in a pinch to stabilize another team's rough guy, tough guy, whatever you want to call it. He could do that. So Xhekaj, I think Xhekaj's in a good position. I think Lane Hudson's in a good position. Obviously, they think the world of Guhle. That's why we had that huge extension announced. And this will take some of them. I think if they go 11-7, it takes a lot of minutes away from Matheson. And I think that's important going forward for them. And I think it takes some big minutes away from David Savard as he gets older. So I think it's all positive for Montreal.
I do too. And just to follow up on that quickly, Randy Workman saying, Marco, I think Harris gets traded. I don't think that's I'm not saying they should trade him, but I will agree with Randy. Sometimes it seems to be heading that way, and I don't know why.
Because there are other players they think internally they might be, better or whatever. I personally like Jordan a lot.
I love Jordan.
But again, you got to balance the expectation. Is he really a top 4 defenseman on a Stanley Cup contending team? If he's going to be, he's going to have to start to become like Brandon Marchand is offensively.
Great call. Yeah.
Because that's what he was like at Northeastern.
Yeah.
Go watch him play big games for Northeastern, Beanpot games, NCAA tournament games, hockey's playoff games. He's also always an offensive catalyst. He was really good at it. We really haven't seen much of that in the NHL.
Yeah.
But Montour, that's his calling card.
Yep.
And that's why Matt Cater was able to get him a massive deal in Seattle. Wow. Massive deal.
Yep. Good for him. Congratulations to Matt and Brandon. All right, next question. Vid Zombie. Would Laine fit with the Habs right now? Well, we discussed that in depth. He's, as Pierre pointed out, he's a point per game player almost. So yeah, he'd help a lot of teams. It's just a matter of seeing where he is off the ice right now.
Yeah. Athletically, he would help the team.
Yep, for sure.
You have to make sure. And we don't want to be insensitive. And Jimmy and I both have talked about this out there. We do not want to be insensitive. When it's all said and done in this conversation, we're talking about him as an athlete.
Yep.
We're more concerned about him as a person.
Yes.
And that's kind of where we want to be with that whole Laine thing right now.
Yep. All right. Next question. A to Z me. With Canada's drone spying scandal, I was wondering if this was going to come up in the news. What's Pierre's favorite hockey cheating story that he's ever heard, seen? Ooh, nice question.
No, I got a couple.
Yeah, and obviously names and teams
A
don't
lot
have
of it would have to do with equipment stuff.
Okay.
You know, how did the Canadiens know that Marty McSorley had an illegal stick?
There we go.
I'll tell you how they knew. Because the Kings locked their equipment because there was a rock show in Montreal. They locked their equipment in the visiting team's locker room in a closet, but they didn't have their own lock. The Canadiens had the lock, and they had the key to the lock. So how did the Canadiens get in there to measure the sticks? Just a thought. And then I won't tell you the two teams, but I know because I was doing the game, and there was a team that would sharpen skates, and they'd have a rug underneath, and then they would let some of the entrails from the sharpening fall on the rug, which you couldn't see. And the players, when they would go out from the visiting team, would have to go across those, and they'd be losing their edges a lot over the course of a game. And so it affected the competitive balance of the game just a little bit. And then obviously there were always rumors about painting the dressing rooms in the playoffs, having one bench be shorter than another bench. There were always those rumors. Some of them probably are true, some of them aren't. In terms of scouting, not much. I mean, a lot of times there's like a gentleman's agreement. You can't watch us practice. We won't watch you practice. A playoff series.
Yeah.
That's just a gentleman's agreement. There's not much you're going to take out of that.
Yeah.
It's not like flying a drone over a soccer practice before the freaking Olympics start. Like, you don't think you're going to get caught doing that? Who are the brain surgeons for Soccer Canada that came up with that idea?
I know, eh? I know. It's unreal. Pierre, don't forget about the time your team had a change out in the concourse at Boston Garden.
But that wasn't anybody's fault. That was our fault.
Okay.
The part of that story,
You got to tell that story. That's right, AC.
It was the best thing. Scotty's such a good guy, Scotty Bowman, and we had walked over to the rink that morning, and it was hot. It was really hot. It was before Game 4.
Those that don't know, Pierre, just tell them, back at the old Boston Garden did not have air conditioning.
No air conditioning.
And we got to May and June.
Especially in the visitors' dressing room. Trust me.
Yeah.
It was really hot.
About that.
So after we walked over to the rink, Scotty said, "You know what, Pierre?" Because I always had the team credit card. He said, "Give the team credit card to one of our trainers who will remain nameless, and tell them to go to Brookstone and buy a portable air conditioner, and tell them we'll surprise the players when they come back after their naps. You know, we're up 3-0 in the series. They'll feel good about themselves. We'll go out there and we'll be ready to go. We'll steamroll these guys tonight." So Scotty and I go back, have a team meal with the team, whatever, walk around, come back to the rink for the game. We show up, and it's like a sauna. It's not even close to being cool. It's crazy hot. So we're like, man, he didn't go and buy it. The trainer didn't go buy it. So we went in the room. We saw this machine. It was turned up full blast. It wasn't an air conditioner. It was a heater. He turned the heater up full blast. So we couldn't change in the dressing room. It was ridiculous. So we went to the Bruins, and the Bruins, to their credit, they were gentlemen about it. The organization was. They put up curtains in the hallway, and our guys were getting changed in the hallway. And on the other side of the curtains, people were drinking beer and smoking darts and throwing them on the floor. It was unbelievable.
And just so people know, too, and you should watch, any of the old documentaries on the Celtics Lakers, or even that winning time that was focused more on the Lakers. Red Auerbach used to turn up the heat in June in the NBA Finals against the Lakers to make them sweat. And they, that's why you would always see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with that oxygen tank next to him and sucking on oxygen when he get out to the court. It's because Red made it very, very hot in the locker room. Good stuff. All right, next question. Jason Logan, what do you think of Nashville this year with all the additions? I think it's a great job. I think they're going to the playoffs.
They're going to be a very difficult team. First of all, Andrew Burnett's a very good coach.
Yep.
Surround himself with very good coaches. Their general manager is proactive. He understands the new game, Barry Trotz, and he understands the importance of team building. Because he was a coach, he gets that. He understands that. So I think that's really important. But you cannot understand what a guy like Steven Stamkos brings to the party, not just athletically, leadership-wise. And, I'm looking at that and I'm going, Roman Josi, Steven Stamkos, Philip Forsberg,
Ryan
O'Reilly, Gustav Nyquist. You start looking at it and you're going, this is a pretty good team.
A lot of leadership.
Saros is signed to a long-term extension.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some kids like Tomasino coming up in the organization.
Yeah.
They've got some good stuff
going on. Barry Trotz. It's a good rookie summer for him, or second summer, actually.
Yeah.
Good job by him. All right, we got one more question here. What do we got? Woo claps. I don't know what that means. It's a good, interesting name, like your avatar. Do you think the Habs will make a big push to acquire a top 6 player before puck drop?
Depends on I think a lot depends on what they look like in camp.
Yep.
I do. I really believe that, for instance, if Kirby Dach comes in and plays as well as we think, that's going to be really positive. I think if Newhook comes in and shows that he's got some offensive mojo going this year to start and he looks like he's going to stay healthy, maybe they don't do anything. To me, the biggest thing is Caulfield's got to come right out of the gate firing. Slafkowski's got to be 25 to 35 goals. Has to be. Suzuki's got to be better than a point-a-game player. If they do that, I think they can stabilize things. They're going to be tough to score against. They're not going to give up a lot of chances. As long as the players pay attention to the coaching that goes on, they're not going to be easy to score against.
Yep. All right, we actually got one more question. We'll sneak it in. Jason Logan, good. I'm glad he brought it up. Eric Stahl retiring. His number 12 to the rafters in Carolina this season. Pierre, he wants to know if you got a good story to say about him.
I got a lot of good stories about Eric. I respect the family so much. I obviously know Jordan a little bit better, and I know Mark really well. I don't know Jared as well, the fourth brother. But one of the first times I saw Eric Stahl was at a World Junior training camp in Halifax in 2002, actually. It was for the 03 World Junior, but it was in 02. And he was the last player cut. And I was like, I can't believe he didn't just make the team. And he got beat out by a guy named Christensen, who ended up playing for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who was a really good goal scorer from the Western Hockey League. And I was surprised that happened. But then that year, not long after 05, he went and played in the American Hockey League in Lowell, where Carolina put their players. And I was like, whoa, this guy's good. He's really good. And then obviously they win the cup in 06, and that's kind of his coming out party. So, but I remember him getting cut, and for him not to take it personal, he came back with a vengeance, and he proved a lot of people wrong. Had an amazing career. The numbers are gaudy in a good way. The numbers are really, really gaudy. He's going to merit serious consideration for some significant consideration for the Hockey Hall of Fame at some point. Yeah, he will. The numbers are really rich. They're good.
Yeah. I always like to, that he got that one last, and, everyone kind of knew they weren't going to win it against Tampa Bay, but him being part of that run for the Montreal Canadiens was interesting. And you didn't hear a bad word. Just the amount of praise about his leadership from all those players during that run, I thought spoke volumes about him.
What I liked about what happened with him more than anything, when he broke in Carolina, Dougie Waite was there, Rod Brindamore was there, Mark Recchi was there. Mark Recchi and the Stahl brothers all had the same agent, Ricky Kern and Bobby Orr. So they all kind of knew each other and they would communicate. And so there was respect there. There was a lot. Don't forget, Glenn Wesley was there. There were a lot of really good professional guys that were around at the time. And I think that really mattered. Brett Hedican, I almost forgot Brett. Brett was a really important player there who never gets enough credit, and a real gentleman, a really, really honorable person. So there were a lot of guys that when he was early in his career, he learned a lot of life lessons and he learned a lot of hockey lessons.
For sure. Well, congratulations to him on a great career.
Yep.
And we want to thank our production crew up in Montreal, Sammy and Nello and the whole family up there, the Cavalleros. And also shout out to our sponsors again, Betway and TCS, Customs and Logistics. And thanks to our viewers and listeners. This has been another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.